I spent 28 years being invisible at Vantage Therapeutics. Never made waves, never asked for attention. I just did my job, kept my head down, and watched my pension balance grow. 8 months from vesting, I figured I was safe. Who fires a quiet man with 3 decades of clean performance reviews? The answer, I learned, is everyone. They terminated 40 of us in a single week, everyone over 55. They called it economics. But then someone inside the company sent me an email, no name, no explanation, just a document that showed exactly what they'd done and why. Turns out, being invisible has one advantage. They never saw me coming. The email came at 8:47 on a Tuesday morning. My manager, Nina Ashford, wanted to see me in conference room B. No subject line, no explanation, just a meeting request for 9 a.m. I'd been at Vantage Therapeutics for 28 years. In all that time, I'd never been called to conference room B. That was the room with no windows, the room where bad news lived. I told myself it was nothing and walked down the hall like it was any other day. Nina was already there when I arrived. So was a woman from HR I'd seen around but never spoken to. They had folders in front of them. The HR woman smiled at me. It wasn't a real smile. She gestured to an empty chair. "Lyle, please sit down." I sat. Nina wouldn't look at me. She stared at the table like she'd found something interesting in the wood grain. The HR woman did all the talking. She folded her hands on the table. "Due to ongoing restructuring efforts and economic considerations, the company has made the difficult decision to eliminate your position." I heard the words. I understood them. But they didn't make sense. I had 28 years of clean performance reviews. I'd hit my sales targets for 11 straight quarters. My clients requested me by name. She was still smiling. "This isn't a reflection of your performance. It's simply a business decision." I looked at Nina. She was my manager for 6 years. I trained her replacement when she got promoted. "I thought we respected each other." "Nina?" My voice came out quieter than I intended. She finally looked up. Her eyes were red. "I'm sorry, Lyle. This came from above me." The HR woman slid a paper across the table. "Severance agreement. 12 weeks of pay. A promise not to sue in exchange for a signature. We'll need you to sign today." She tapped the signature line. "And we'll need your badge before you leave the building." I stared at the paper. 12 weeks. That was the price of 28 years. I pointed to a line near the bottom. "My pension. I'm 8 months from my vesting date." The HR woman's smile flickered. "Just for a second. Unfortunately, unvested benefits are forfeited upon separation. It's in your employment contract." 8 months. After 28 years, they couldn't wait 8 more months. I didn't sign the paper. I told them I needed to think about it. The HR woman's smile disappeared completely. She said I had 72 hours. Security walked me to my desk. I had 20 minutes to pack. Photos of my kids went in first, then my coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle. A few files I probably didn't need. People around me stared at their screens. Nobody looked up. Nobody said goodbye. The security guard walked me to the elevator. He pressed the button for the lobby. We rode down in silence. When the doors opened to the parking lot, I stopped. There were 6 other people out there, all of them holding boxes, all of them standing by their cars like they didn't know what to do next. Every single one had gray hair. Every single one was over 55. I walked to my car and put the box in my trunk. I sat behind the wheel for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, trying to understand what had just happened. I was 64 years old. I'd given this company almost 3 decades. And in 20 minutes, I'd become invisible for real. The first week, I told myself it would be fine. I had experience. I had connections. Companies would be lucky to have me. I updated my resume, applied to 31 positions in 3 weeks. I got 4 responses. 3 were automated rejections. The 4th was a phone screening with a woman who sounded like she was reading from a script. She asked if I'd really been in sales for 28 years. I confirmed. Then she asked my age. 64, I told her. She didn't ask any more questions. She said they'd be in touch. They weren't. I started noticing a pattern. The jobs I applied for would stay posted after I was rejected. Then they'd disappear a few weeks later. Filled. I looked up the new hires on LinkedIn when I could find them. They were all in their 30s, some in their 20s. My experience wasn't an asset, it was a warning sign. Every year on my resume was another reason not to call me back. One night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, thinking about the parking lot. Those 6 faces. All the gray hair, all the confusion. The next morning, I made some calls. The first was to Dan Oberlin. We'd worked the same territory for 12 years before he moved to the Northeast region. He was 61. He'd been terminated the same week as me. Restructuring, he said with a bitter laugh. Same speech you got. Same 72 hours to sign. I called Francine Muller. She was 63, 31 years at the company. Gone. I called Ray Sizemore, 58, 24 years. Gone. Every call was the same story. No warning, no performance issues, just a meeting in a windowless room and a security escort to the parking lot. By the end of the week, I had a list of 19 names, all over 55, all terminated within the same 2-week period. I kept digging. The number grew. 40 people over 55, all gone. I started keeping notes in a yellow legal pad. Names, ages, years of service. I drew a chart on the kitchen table. My wife thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. Then I found something else. I still had friends at the company, people who hadn't been targeted. One of them, a woman in accounts receivable, agreed to meet me for coffee. She was nervous the whole time, kept looking at the door. She leaned in close. They're hiring again. A lot. They brought in 35 new reps in the last 90 days. I set down my cup. How old? She stirred her coffee, avoiding my eyes. Young. All of them. I don't think any of them are over 40. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite anger. Not yet, but close. She lowered her voice even further. There's something else. I heard there was a presentation, something from the executive team, a formula for who to let go. I leaned forward. What kind of formula? I don't know. She glanced at the door again, but I heard it had numbers. Costs. Savings. She paused. Ages. I wrote it down in my legal pad. Presentation. Formula. Ages. I didn't know what to do with that information. Not yet. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a restructuring. This wasn't economic necessity. This was a plan. And someone had done the math. I just didn't know yet that someone else had kept the receipts. The email arrived on a Thursday night, 11:47 p.m. I almost missed it. It went straight to my spam folder. The sender was a random string of numbers at a free email service. No name, no signature, just a subject line that said, "For Lyle Cobb," and a single attachment. I should have deleted it. Could have been a virus. Could have been a scam. But something made me click. The attachment was a PowerPoint presentation, 32 slides. The title on the first page made me sit up straight. Workforce Optimization, Age, Adjusted Cost Savings. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood. Then I read it again. The presentation was dated 4 months before my termination. It was created for the executive team. The first few slides talked about competitive positioning and operational efficiency, corporate buzzwords. Nothing unusual. Then I got to slide 12. There was a chart. On the left side, a list of employee categories. On the right side, cost projections. How much the company could save by eliminating certain positions. The highest savings came from one category, employees over 55 with 15 or more years of service. Slide 14 broke it down further. Salary costs, healthcare costs, and pension liability. Pension liability was highlighted in red. Slide 18 had the formula. Actual numbers. How to calculate savings per employee based on years until pension vesting. The closer someone was to their milestone, the more valuable it was to cut them loose before they got there. Slide 23 had a list. I found my name on row 34. Next to it was my age, my years of service, and my pension vesting date. There was a dollar amount in the final column, $312,000. That's how much the company would save by firing me before my 29-year mark. I read that number 5 times. Then I pushed back from the table because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. They'd calculated my worth down to the dollar. Then they decided I wasn't worth it. I sat at my kitchen table until 3 a.m. I printed the whole thing. I read every slide. I cross-referenced the list with the names in my legal pad. Every single person I'd tracked down was on that list, all 40 of them. This wasn't a restructuring. It was an execution, planned months in advance, approved at the highest level. Someone inside the company had sent me this. Someone with access to executive presentations. Someone who knew my personal email address. I stared at the screen for a long time. trying to figure out who. It had to be someone in the executive suite, or someone who reported to them. Finance, maybe. Strategy. HR. I thought about Nina, my old manager. She'd looked sick in that conference room. She could barely meet my eyes. But Nina was part of it. She'd been in the room when they walked me out. Why would she help me now? I thought about the woman from accounts receivable. She'd been nervous at our coffee meeting, but she didn't have access to executive presentations. Too low on the ladder. I ran through every name I could think of, every person who might have had the access and the motive. I came up empty. Whoever sent this email had taken an enormous risk. If the company found out, they'd be finished, fired at minimum, maybe sued, maybe worse. They'd risked everything to get this document to me. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know why they'd done it, but I knew what I had to do next. I found a lawyer named Ruth Castellano. She specialized in employment discrimination. She'd been doing it for 26 years. When I told her my story, she listened without interrupting. When I showed her the presentation, she leaned forward in her chair. "Where did you get this?" "Anonymous email," I told her. "I don't know who sent it." She flipped through the printout, slide by slide. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes did. She set the pages down carefully. "This is a smoking gun. If it's real, it's real." She raised an eyebrow. "The company will say you fabricated it. They'll say it's a fake." "I didn't fabricate anything." She nodded. "I believe you, but believing isn't enough. We need to prove it came from inside the company." She tapped the stack of papers. "We need to file with the EEOC and force them to produce the original." The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I'd heard of it, never thought I'd need it. I asked what would happen when we filed. Ruth was direct. "They investigate. They subpoena, and the company will fight like hell to bury you before this ever sees a courtroom." I thought about my savings, my wife's face when I told her I'd been fired, the stack of rejection letters on my desk. File it. We filed the complaint 2 weeks later. Age discrimination under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. 41 pages. The presentation was Exhibit A. The response came faster than I expected. 3 days after the filing, I got a letter from the company's legal team. It wasn't addressed to Ruth. It was addressed to me, personally, at my home address. The letter accused me of possessing stolen confidential documents. It said I had obtained proprietary company materials through unlawful means. It threatened criminal referral for theft of trade secrets. It demanded I identify my source immediately or face the full extent of legal consequences. My hands were shaking when I finished reading. I called Ruth. She told me to come to her office. When I got there, she had her own copy of the letter. She held it up. "They sent one to me too. Different wording, same message. Can they do this?" I dropped into the chair across from her desk. "Can they come after me?" She leaned back. "They can threaten. Threatening is free. But here's what they can't do. They can't make you reveal a confidential source. And they can't stop the EEOC from subpoenaing the original document. What if they destroy it? Then they're guilty of spoliation of evidence. That's worse for them than whatever's in the presentation." I read the letter again. The language was aggressive. Words like criminal and prosecution and immediate action. "They're trying to scare me." "Yes." I looked up at her. "Why? If the document is fake, they should just say so." Ruth smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "Exactly. They're scared, Lyle. That document is real. And they know what happens if it comes out." I went home that night and sat in my living room. The house was quiet. My wife was asleep. I thought about the person who had sent me that email. They were still inside the company, still going to work every day, sitting in meetings with the same executives who had signed off on that presentation. Did they know what I'd done with it? Were they watching the news, waiting to see if it worked? Were they afraid? I hoped they were safe. Whoever they were, they put themselves on the line for me, for all of us. 40 people they probably didn't even know. I didn't pray much. But that night, I said a few words for the person behind that anonymous email. The company wanted me to give them up. They wanted a name, someone to blame, someone to punish. They weren't going to get one from me. The EEOC moved faster than I expected. Their investigators sent a formal request to Vantage Therapeutics, produce the original presentation, all drafts, all emails related to workforce optimization, all termination records for employees over 55 in the past 18 months. The company had 30 days to comply. They fought it, filed motions, claimed the presentation didn't exist. The EEOC subpoenaed them anyway. 6 weeks later, Ruth called me into her office. She had a box on her desk. Inside were copies of the documents the company had been forced to turn over. The presentation was there. All 32 slides, word for word, identical to the one I'd received. Ruth tapped the stack of pages. "It's real. They admitted it's real." I sat down. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. "What now?" "Now we build the case." She pulled out a legal pad, and we find the others. I still had my legal pad, my list of 40 names. I started making calls again. Not everyone wanted to join. Some had already signed their severance agreements. Some had moved on. Some just didn't want the fight. But others did. Dan Oberlin was in. So was Francine Mueller. Ray Sizemore said yes before I finished asking. One by one, they signed on. People I knew, people I didn't, all of them over 55, all of them on that spreadsheet. By the end of the month, we had 31 plaintiffs. Ruth filed an amended complaint. It was no longer just my case. It was a class action. The company noticed. 2 days after the amended filing, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice. Polite, professional. He introduced himself as outside counsel for Vantage Therapeutics. "Mr. Cobb, we'd like to discuss a resolution." I kept my voice flat. "I have a lawyer. You should call her. This is a personal offer, Mr. Cobb, just for you, off the record." I should have hung up, but I wanted to hear it. He continued, his voice smooth and practiced. "We're prepared to offer you a settlement, $200,000. Your pension fully restored. All legal threats dropped. In exchange, you withdraw from the case and sign a non-disclosure agreement. 200,000, more money than I'd made in 3 years. What about the others?" A pause. "Excuse me?" "The other plaintiffs." I gripped the phone tighter. The 30 other people on that list. Silence on the line. Then, "This offer is for you, Mr. Cobb, individually. The others would need to negotiate separately." I thought about Dan, about Francine, about Ray. They trusted me. They joined because I asked them to. "No," he tried to interject. "Mr. Cobb, I strongly suggest you consider—" I cut him off. I said no. "You want to settle, you settle with all of us, or you settle with none of us." I hung up. My hands were steady. I surprised myself. That night, a reporter from a business publication called Ruth's office. Someone had leaked the story. She didn't know who. The reporter was asking about age discrimination at Vantage Therapeutics. She was asking about a presentation called Workforce Optimization. Ruth called me with the news. "It's about to go public." I thought about the insider, the person who had started all this. Still anonymous, still hidden. Were they the one who called the reporter, or was it someone else? I didn't know. But the pressure was building. The company was cornered. The world was about to find out what they'd done. I still hadn't heard from my anonymous source. Not a word since that first email. I checked my inbox every night. Nothing. Whoever they were still out there, still watching. I wondered if they knew what was coming next. The call came on a Sunday night, 10 days before the depositions were scheduled to begin. I didn't recognize the number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. "Lyle?" A woman's voice. Familiar. I couldn't place it at first. "This is Lyle." Silence. Then a shaky breath. "It's Nina. Nina Ashford." I sat down. My old manager. The woman who couldn't look at me when they walked me out the door. "How did you get this number?" Her voice steadied slightly. "I've had it for years, from when I was your manager." Another pause. "I need to tell you something. I should have told you a long time ago." I waited. "The email." She took a breath. "The one with the presentation. That was me." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The words started pouring out of her. "I sent it from a burner account. I created it on a public computer at the library. I was so scared they'd trace it back to me." Her voice cracked. "I've been scared every day since." I found my voice. "Why?" "Because I was part of it, Lyle. I was part of the whole thing." She told me everything. 6 months before the layoffs, her boss called her into a meeting. He told her the company was implementing a new cost-saving initiative. They needed to reduce headcount, and they were starting with the highest-cost employees, the ones closest to their pension milestones. Her job was to build the case, document performance issues, create a paper trail that would justify the terminations. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They gave me a list of names. Your name was on it. I was supposed to find reasons to fire you or create them." I thought about those last months, the strange complaints that never made sense, the territory changes, the meetings I wasn't invited to. You did it. Yes. The word came out broken. I did what they told me. I wrote reports. I flagged small mistakes. I made you look like a problem. I should have been angry. Part of me was. But there was something else in her voice. Something broken. Why are you telling me this now? Because I can't sleep, Lyle. She was crying now. I haven't slept through the night in 8 months. Every time I close my eyes, I see the parking lot. All those people with their boxes. I did that. I helped them do that. I heard her trying to compose herself. Quiet sobs. Like she was trying to hide it, she continued, her voice raw. I watched the news. I saw your case. 31 people. I kept thinking, someone should tell the truth. Someone should say what really happened. She took a breath, and then I realized, I'm the only one who can. What are you saying? I want to testify. Her voice grew firmer. I'll tell them everything. The meetings, the orders, the fake performance files, all of it. I didn't know what to say. She'd ended my career. She'd also risked everything to help me fight back. You could lose your job. You could get sued. They could come after you the way they came after me. I know. Why? Silence. Then, because I have to live with myself, Lyle, and I can't. Not like this. I sat in the dark for a long time after she hung up. I thought about forgiveness, whether I had it in me, whether she deserved it. I didn't have answers, not that night. But I called Ruth first thing in the morning. I know who sent the email, and she wants to talk. Nina testified on a Wednesday morning. I wasn't in the room. Depositions are private. But Ruth told me what happened. Nina named everyone. Her boss, David Stenner, who gave her the list. The VP of Human Resources, who approved the fake performance files. The CFO, who signed off on the cost projections. And Jonathan Price, the CEO, who presented workforce optimization to the board and called it a strategic initiative. She brought documents, emails, meeting notes, a recording of a phone call where Stenner told her to find problems or make them up. She cried twice during her testimony. But she didn't stop. The company's lawyers tried to discredit her. They called her disgruntled. They said she was lying to save herself. They threatened her with a countersuit. Nina didn't back down. She looked the lead attorney in the eye and told him plainly, I did what they asked. I'm not proud of it, but I'm done being afraid. 2 weeks later, Vantage Therapeutics asked for a settlement meeting. Ruth called with the news. They want to talk. All plaintiffs, full group. We met in a conference room downtown, 31 of us on one side of the table, a wall of corporate lawyers on the other. They offered $8.4 million, divided among all plaintiffs based on years of service and lost benefits. Every pension would be restored. Every personnel file would be expunged. The company would issue a public statement acknowledging errors in the restructuring process. There was one more condition. Jonathan Price was stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. I looked around the table. Dan, Francine, Ray, people who had joined because I asked them to. Ruth turned to the group. What do you think? Dan didn't hesitate. We take it. We signed that afternoon. The news broke the next morning. Business pages, cable news. A few outlets ran the full story. Most just ran the headline. Vantage Therapeutics CEO resigns amid age discrimination settlement. People called me for interviews. I did a few. I told my story. I said what I thought needed to be said. Then I stopped answering the phone. Nina got whistleblower protection. She lost her job at Vantage, but she didn't get sued. A nonprofit that advocates for corporate accountability offered her a position. Last I heard, she took it. 3 months after the settlement, I got a letter from Washington. A Senate subcommittee was holding hearings on age discrimination in corporate America. They wanted me to testify. I almost said no. I'd never been comfortable in the spotlight. 28 years of keeping my head down. It's hard to change. But then I thought about the parking lot. Those 6 faces. All the gray hair. All the confusion. Someone needed to say it out loud. Someone needed to tell them what was happening in conference rooms across the country. The formulas. The spreadsheets. The way companies calculated the cost of loyalty and decided it was too high. So I went to Washington. I sat at a long table with a microphone in front of me. Senators asked questions. Cameras pointed at my face. I told the truth. I told them I spent 28 years being invisible. I told them they fired me 8 months before my pension because someone did the math and decided I wasn't worth it. I told them about Nina, about the presentation, about the 40 people in that parking lot. And I told them we fought back. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then someone in the gallery started clapping. A few more joined in. The chairman banged his gavel, but he was smiling. I walked out of that building into the afternoon sun. My wife was waiting on the steps. She didn't say anything. She just took my hand. I was 65 years old. My pension was restored. My name was cleared. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible.